How does someone born into poverty become the richest person on the planet? Andrew Carnegie is the embodiment of the ultimate rags to riches story, but his journey from humble Scottish immigrant to ruthless business tycoon to unprecedented philanthropist was far more complex than it may initially seem. Carnegie was a man of stark contrasts, revered as a visionary hero by some, yet reviled as a greedy villain by others. In this video, we'll dive deep to explore the two vastly different sides of this legendary historical figure. By the end, you'll have to decide for yourself where you stand on this titan of industry and philanthropy. Our story begins in 1835 in the small town of Dunfermline, Scotland. Young Andrew Carnegie's family lived in a tiny, cramped one-room cottage, forced to share the meager space with another impoverished family. His father, William, worked as a handloom weaver, a once respectable trade that was being rapidly rendered obsolete by the relentless march of industrialization and mechanization. As work opportunities for the elder Carnegie dried up, the family sank deeper into dire poverty. Seeing no future in Scotland, the Carnegies made the agonizing decision to uproot their lives and embark on the long, arduous voyage to America when Andrew was just 13 years old. At the tender age of 13, young Andrew was forced to take on the adult responsibility of working to help keep his family afloat. He began in a lowly position at a local cotton mill, toiling away for 12 miserable hours a day. The messenger position gave the enterprising Carnegie the opportunity to interact with many of the city's most prominent and powerful business leaders. More significantly, it brought the young man to the attention of Thomas A. Scott, a rising executive at the Pennsylvania Railroad Company. Scott immediately recognized Carnegie's sharp intelligence, tireless drive, and magnetic personality. He took the youth under his wing, hiring Carnegie as his personal telegrapher and secretary. With that, Carnegie launched his career at the mighty Pennsylvania Railroad, the largest and most important railroad in the country at the time. Over the next formative decade, Scott served as an invaluable mentor to Carnegie, teaching him the intricacies of the railroad industry and the wider business world. Carnegie proved a prodigy, advancing rapidly through the company ranks thanks to his quick mind, relentless work ethic, and Scott's sage guidance. Astonishingly, by the age of 30, he was earning $50,000 per year, equivalent to around $900,000 today. Carnegie shrewdly recognized that the fast-growing railroad industry's incessant hunger for iron and steel to construct rails and bridges presented an immense business opportunity. He began investing in a series of steel mills and factories, as well as new steelmaking technologies, especially the revolutionary Bessemer steelmaking process. Carnegie's companies pioneered methods like vertical integration, owning every stage of the production process from raw materials to finished product. He also implemented new management techniques and cost-cutting measures utterly ruthlessly. One especially infamous strategy was deliberately spreading malicious rumors about rival steel companies producing defective products in order to undermine their reputations and sink their businesses. By keeping his labor and overhead costs as low as humanly possible, Carnegie was able to drastically undercut his competitors on price. With his superior efficiency and aggressive tactics, Carnegie soon came to utterly dominate the American steel industry, which turbocharged the country's dizzying industrial expansion. However, Carnegie's swelling business success and wealth came at a heavy human price. His relentless cost-cutting and drive for profits meant his steel mills became notoriously dangerous places to work, with an appalling safety record where life-changing injuries were commonplace and deaths not infrequent. Carnegie demanded his employees work punishingly long hours in hellish conditions for shamefully low wages. Any attempts by workers to unionize and bargain for better treatment were quickly and harshly crushed. The brutal working conditions in his factories stood in stark contrast to Carnegie's carefully cultivated public persona as an enlightened, progressive voice and supposed champion of fair workers' rights. In practice, though, Carnegie was largely distant from the dark day-to-day realities, escaping direct accountability. He left his partner, Henry Clay Frick, in charge to institute these draconian policies, while Carnegie himself often turned a blind eye to the human impact. In 1889, tragedy struck western Pennsylvania when an old earthen dam owned by the exclusive South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club catastrophically failed, unleashing 20 million tons of water. The resulting devastation became known as the Johnstown Flood, killing over 2,200 people in its path. The club counted many of the Gilded Age's leading business tycoons as members, including Carnegie. While not legally culpable, Carnegie's close association with the disaster bred public contempt and resentment toward the perceived callousness and recklessness of the ultra-wealthy ruling class. As the 20th century dawned, Carnegie's steel empire had grown to truly unrivaled heights. In 1901, the legendary banker J.P. Morgan, seeing faster profits in finance, approached the aging Carnegie, now in his 60s, with an extraordinary offer to buy out the Carnegie Steel Company. Carnegie responded by coolly naming his astronomical price, $480 million, an unheard-of sum equivalent to over $14 billion today. Incredibly, Morgan agreed on the spot, handing over a check for more than twice the entire budget of the US government. With a stroke of a pen, the poor bobbin boy from Scotland secured his place as the richest man in the world. And he did it virtually overnight. But while Carnegie had spent the first 6 decades of his life single-mindedly pursuing wealth, he now radically shifted his attention to giving that immense fortune away. Having conquered the business world, he now sought to make his mark as a benefactor to humanity on an epic scale. Declaring that the man who dies thus rich dies disgraced, Carnegie threw himself into philanthropy with the same passion and aptitude he had shown in industry. He donated vast sums to establish over 2,500 free public libraries around the world, believing that education and access to knowledge formed the bedrock of advancement for the working class. He built universities, museums, music halls, and founded a slew of organizations dedicated to causes such as scientific research and the promotion of world peace. Many of these institutions, like Carnegie Hall and Carnegie Mellon University, still bear his name to this day. So epic was the scale of Carnegie's charitable giving that by the end of his long life, he had divested himself of nearly 90% of his incredible wealth. Nothing like it had ever been done before. Part of his mission was to inspire his fellow tycoons to follow his lead, setting a new expectation that the richest were morally obligated to give back to the society that had enabled their success. He hoped his unprecedented generosity would spark a new era of great philanthropic works. And to a significant degree, he succeeded in this aim. Many of his Gilded Age peers, including John D. Rockefeller and Henry Ford, took up the challenge, ushering in a period of unparalleled charitable giving by the ultra-rich. In this way, Carnegie helped establish the modern framework of large-scale private philanthropy, with wealthy benefactors funding nonprofits to tackle social issues. This model, though at times controversial, undeniably remains hugely influential to the present day. So, in the end, what do you think? Where do you stand on this titan of history? Was Andrew Carnegie primarily a brilliant visionary and generous benefactor worthy of our admiration? Or a more troubling figure whose human failings and moral compromises can't be forgotten? Perhaps he exists in a gray space as an imperfect man trying to improve the world, even as he damaged parts of it. Let us know your take in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to let us know by liking this video and subscribing to Infinite Lux for more fascinating profiles putting history's most influential titans in a new light.